It's your life, so it's your story. We'll explain how. Hi, and welcome to A Lasting Impression of You, where we help our clients immortalize their thoughts, their feelings, and all those great stories, and there's probably a lot of them, for generations to come. I'm Todd Yost.
And I'm Christy Yost. And here at A Lasting Impression of You, we know that everybody's story is just a little bit different. Just like our fingerprints. Nobody's is exactly the same, and we all have our very own story to tell.
Absolutely true, and that's why yours needs to be told. At A Lasting Impression of You, we hope our clients come up with a thoughtful, detailed timeline of their life, the things that happened in their life, and all the great people that helped them shape their legacy. And we encourage them to start from the very beginning. What did you first remember about your life?
Hi, my name is Bob Pennington. Born in 1944, August 25. The very first thing I remember is from my birth was when my parents' house burned down. And it was a terrible event. I remember so much about it that I remember flames coming out, and I was standing next to my grandmother, and I says there was smoke coming out of the roof, and of course that was it. And next thing I remember is my neighbor throwing up because the house was gone. And so that was 4 years old. I remember my brother and I had our underwear on, and that was it.
I was born in Hillsboro, Oregon. And at 3 months old, I moved to Pendleton, Oregon. Letterbuck room. And the first memory that I have that I can remember is that I was like 3 years old and a little tiny thing with blonde hair, and I always liked to dance, and I was always dancing around.
What happened in your life? What do you have to tell? What's part of your story?
Senior in high school, junior. It doesn't make a difference what place it was. It was in Portland someplace. And I remember going down to Broadway, which we used to cruise that, and it was a wonderful trip. You know. And there was one motorcycle cop. His name was Francis, and we were crossing over into the Portland area, and Francis was on his bike sitting at a stoplight, and as we go through the light, we scream out the window, "Francis!" Well, 15 minutes later, we're in the jail because of curfew. I remember moving to Central Oregon and talking to some of the locals, and to tie us back to Broadway, cruising on a Friday night, all of a sudden this man says, for his safety and everything, I won't say his first and last name, but we can remember driving down Broadway in downtown Portland at the same time, which is amazing as far as I'm concerned.
Then I lived in Pendleton till I was maybe 13, and then I moved to the Tri-Cities, Kennewick, Richland, and Pasco. And I met my ex-husband there. He went to Mount Hood Community College, and I got pregnant very, very young. And I got married, and I was married for like 22 years.
So, are you married? Is there a special someone in your life? Do you have kids? Do your kids have kids? We want to hear about them too, because that's important. As chances are, your video is going to be seen by your kids' 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 kids someday. And they're going to know who you are and how maybe they take after you a little bit. That's what's great about family, is everybody's story is important because it matters to us as a whole down the road.
We always have something to say. We always have someone to tell it to.
Hey, speaking of my wife, nice woman. I had a mutual friend, and he says, you know, there's a gal from North Dakota, and I figured she won't know me, so it'd be a good idea to talk to her. So I says, hello, I says, this is Bob Pennington, may I speak to Pat Pennington, or Pat Praska. We hadn't married yet. That didn't take long though. So she says, well, speaking, I says, I'd like to ask you out. He says, well, I'm married, but you might be wanting to talk to my sister-in-law. And I said, well, that'll be fine. So I stood up a woman to take out my dear wife. And 3 months later, I was engaged, wondering what in the hell did I just do? But I realized my dad said, you know, even though he was anti-Catholic, he just says, what? And I wanted to get out of it. And he says, what are you doing? She's a nice gal. So here we are 51 years later, and she's sitting over in the corner there wondering what the hell did she do? You know, but anyway, I've gained a pound or two since then, lost a few hair follicles, stopped biting my fingernails, don't scratch in public anymore. I've improved a lot. But my dad would be proud of me. Just the fact that I've been married and settled down. And
We lived in Portland for 3 years, and then we moved to Hawaii. And I lived in Hawaii for 10 years. And I loved it there. I wish I could move back. In fact, when I pass away, I want to be cremated, and I want my ashes thrown in the beach, on the beach at Kailua, which is where I lived for 10 years. It's on Oahu. And that's where I want my ashes to be. My kids grew up there, and I worked on Hawaii Five-0 for 5 years, and I was an extra. I got paid very, very well, and I did that for 5 years. We moved back to Portland, and my husband and I and a family members went into the restaurant business. And we owned the Point Habitat. We owned Earthquake Ethels. And my ex-father-in-law had the River Queen at one time. And then we had the Scrapbook on 24th and Vaughn, which was the clock at that time. And we had that for 3 years. Then things moved on, and I got a divorce.
we have 2 kids, a boy and a girl. First one is Barry, after my dad. He lives in Washington. Our daughter is Andrea Lee, middle name mine, Robert Lee. Good kids. Got them through college. Neither one of my wife or I graduated. But I've matured a lot since we did that. We several dollars short of what we could have had. Well, with a few other mistakes in my life. I mean, just mine alone, not my wife's, mine. But anyway, that's the last time I'll say that. But anyway, they're good kids. We only have 2 grandchildren, smart kids, take after me, even though I never finished anything in my whole life other than our marriage. But excuse me, I don't think it's finished yet. But if she's listening to too much of this conversation, that might be the end of it. Who knows, you know?
And I worked at Ringside for 11 years. And then I met Louis Mervs, and I moved to Hood River, and I lived there for 5 years. And then we broke up, and I moved back, and now I'm at Clary's. But the most important thing is that I love my kids to death, my grandkids. They are very, very important to me, and I do want my ashes spread at Kailua Beach on Oahu. I have 2 boys, Kip and Kevin. Kip has 3 sons. Kevin has 3 daughters, and they're good kids. They have good jobs, and I have 6 grandchildren, and I have 4 great-grandchildren, and they're all very good kids. They're beautiful, and my kids are very successful.
love my family and love my friends. And that's just a fact.
Okay, I've had a very, very good life. I've met tons and tons of people. I would not change anything that I've done through my life. I've been very fortunate. I have my health. I have tons of friends. And I wouldn't change anything, and I wouldn't do anything different because I've learned a lot through life of what I've done and experienced. The one thing that I really regret is that I really miss my grandmother and I really miss my mom. And I have a dad that died when I was like 2 years old, and I never got to meet him. He was in the Navy, and I never got to meet him. I have tons of pictures of him. He was a very handsome man. He loved women, and he was a barber. But other than that, in my whole life, I don't regret anything that I've done.
So the lasting impression of you, we want you to get those stories and those memories down on a video, because your family's going to want to hold on to that for years and years to come. And by doing a thoughtful video like this, we're actually elevating the celebration of life to the next level. Because if something unexpected happens to you, and you've already prepared a nice video, and you let the people know at your ceremony that you were ready for this, that makes everybody much happier. It takes a lot of the sadness out of the ceremony. And instead of someone talking about you and your life who's never met you before, you get to tell your story in your great words and the way you remembered it. And that's really a good way to say goodbye to everybody, and they get to say goodbye to you, and it takes the celebration of life up another level.
So reach us today. You can contact us by phone at 503-303-7615, or you can contact us via email at contactus@alastingimpressionofyou.com. You can also check us out on our website,
alastingimpressionofyou.com. Have a good one.